And did you know what was happening to you because of the conversations that we've had in our home about mental health?
Ew, smell this. Do you want to taste it?
Hell no.
Gross.
Ew.
This is really gross, guys. I'm trying this. This is probably one of my
Water.
mom's. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and turn on your post notifications so you don't miss the next video. First, I want to introduce my aunt. She's here. From Toronto. So yeah, this is my aunt, my mom's sister, and and I thought she would be a good person to have for this type of video about mental health and everything because she's basically an expert on mental health and works in the field.
Thanks, that's so sweet. I'm like such a big fan of hers. She's been a vlogger for a while now, and I'm always like, how do you guys do this? Like, it's so much work. So just excited. In Edmonton. Originally we are from Toronto,
Yeah,
but
I'm
you
not
guys,
from here, guys.
Yeah, look a lot like Christmas here, I'm gonna tell you.
It's snowing.
But it's so pretty because I
But
feel
it's so
like,
pretty.
Yeah, it's so pretty though. I feel like we were talking about that. Christmas is really like, it gives you this cozy feeling, especially because of everything during quarantine. It's like something really pretty to look forward to.
It's like when people try to say my name and they say Sapna instead of Sapna.
Yeah.
It's Sapna.
Sapna. It's
Yeah.
like sup.
It's like, what's up?
Sup.
It's good.
Sup. Let's be serious.
Yeah. What do you do? What's your purpose in life?
Okay, I'm gonna be serious. I am a mental health advocate. I'm a very passionate mental health advocate. Growing up in a home with loved ones experiencing mental illness and then having my own diagnosis, I suffer from anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder. So when I got my diagnosis, I wanted to research and educate myself. And then when I was old enough, I started to work in mental health. I am working in mental health on the front lines during COVID. Like, I found my purpose during COVID. I was working as a mental health advocate in the community, doing community events, bringing awareness, especially in the South Asian community. I'm a board member for Soch Mental Health. Shout out Soch Mental Health. Follow them on Instagram. They're two young South Asian women mental health nurses that decided to just start their own organization and really target
Our community.
Yeah. And I'd say first is where it starts for me, and I'm sure you do too, is like, we don't have a word for mental health. So that's the first and foremost thing.
Yeah.
You know, when I speak to my colleagues, often we discuss, you know, what are the challenges in the South Asian community versus being Canadian. And that's usually the first thing that comes up. And I'm like, well, guys, it starts from, I can't even say how I feel without using derogatory terms.
Do we have a word for like depression?
Don't. We have very derogatory terms like boggle.
Of course, yeah.
Even if you're educated, I feel like even then sometimes a lot of people are really removed from mental health because they associate mental health and mental illness as the same thing. There's a difference between mental health and mental illness. So mental health is something that everyone has. And then there's mental illness, right? Mental illness is a variety of diagnoses that you can... The spectrum.
Yeah.
Anxiety, depression, if you've had a diagnosis of bipolar disorder, multiple personality disorder, schizophrenia, like there's so many different diagnoses. You know, it's something that we talk about really openly in our family, and I'm really grateful for that, right? I feel like, you know, I know recently you've had a lot of challenges with your mental health.
Yeah.
And when did it first start for you? And what was kind of like the tell-all signs? And did you know what was happening to you because of the conversations that we've had in our home about mental health?
I'd have to say, so that's one of the reasons I wasn't vlogging for like the last month. That had a lot to do with my mental health and like my anxiety, and even I feel like I struggle with depression sometimes. But the first time that I recognized those signs was probably way back when I was in grade 12. I never even knew what anxiety was up until then. Like, my mom would have anxiety and she would explain it sometimes to my dad, and I would be there and I would always be like, what is she talking about? Like, feeling anxious, feeling worried. It was very like, obviously I was too young to understand what mental health was or what anxiety was, and I never experienced it, so I didn't know what it was. And then as I got older, when I started experiencing that, I was like, oh, that's what she was talking about all those times. And then I felt like that I lost someone extremely close to me. That's where all those I guess it had to do with grief. It like came with grief. Grief is just the most confusing process and has so many different stages. One minute you have like a stage where you're sad, one minute you have a stage where you're angry, and then each stage has anxiety and depression that comes with it. So mine really started when I lost that person that was really close to me. I guess I didn't even recognize it until months after. So months after going through like depression and feeling like I'm in like a dark hole, and I was like, wow, I wasn't in a good place. I was like not doing good. I think people around me started realizing too. Like,
I noticed.
Yeah, I was
You were
living with you,
me.
so I was living with her, and she used to go to work and come home at like 7 p.m. And I used to stay in bed all day. The only reason I would get out of bed was because I knew she's coming home, and I like didn't want to talk about my depression. And it got to the point where I was like messaging my mom and telling her like, I just feel like I'm drowning. I like can't breathe. She was like, okay, you're experiencing like depression, you're not doing good. I think you should come here, because she was in Alberta at the time and I was in Toronto. I listened to her, I recognized it then. This is like 5 months after I like lost that person that was close to me. I was like, okay, I need to do something about this. That's how I recognized those symptoms, I guess, was looking back after. When you're in it, you don't recognize it. It's after, especially with grief.
Your first exposure to mental health or mental illness, we can say, was through your mom.
Yeah.
Seeing her anxiety and just being like, this isn't fair. Like, why can't you just shake out of this? Why are you feeling like this? And then she mentioned, and then you mentioned that, you know, it wasn't until you got your own diagnosis of anxiety and depression that you started to understand. A lot of the times, this is what we talk about in mental health education, is it doesn't always have to be that we experience something ourselves before we understand another person's struggle, right? But that happens with children a lot. It happened with Sapna, it happened with me, where I was like, I don't understand why, you know, my loved one is acting like this. Until I got my own diagnosis, then I started to understand my loved one's diagnosis in the home. But if we had the knowledge, if we had the education, right? It's not
especially
even
in school, like at least if they tell you some basic thing about mental health, but we never talked about any mental health or anything.
And then the second thing you touched on, so important, that we touch on a lot in mental health, and Soch actually started grief counseling in the South Asian community. Like, what a beautiful thing to do, right? That a lot of people we talk about won't actually experience mental health challenges until they experience grief.
Yeah.
That might be your first exposure to it ever. But everyone, guaranteed, you all out there, you're gonna lose someone at some point. Things happen in life. If that's your first exposure to mental health challenges and you're not equipped to deal with grief, it's gonna be a very, very dark, it's a dark time regardless, is what I'm saying, but you know what I mean. Like, if you're not equipped to recognize those symptoms. Yeah.
Can you guys hold on a second though? Can I grab my bread and make my toast? Yeah.
A lot of understanding that needs to take place around mental health and mental illness, and you know, back to what you were saying, like, it's such a taboo topic in our community. But if we look at the history of mental health and mental illness, like even CAMH, the hospital on Queen Street, was an asylum back in the 50s
they
and
all
60s.
started as asylum.
It's a really scary thought, right, to think of like where we were, but it gives me a lot of hope to think, and I'm sure you too, to think of like where we are right now. There's so many different paths where you can experience a mental health challenge, postpartum depression. So much needs to be discussed around that, you know, just making that not a taboo topic to talk about. Puberty, you know, in adolescence, when your body is changing and your hormones are changing, that's like the most crucial time in someone's life where you can develop a mental illness if you don't have the proper supports. That's when you're highest at risk. And now in schools, it's happening so much, you know?
I mean, I hope so. I don't know.
Like, even if it's not happening like in the school, I think these campaigns like Bell Let's Talk
I definitely feel like they're talking about it more.
Yeah.
Most of what I learned was in university. As soon as I saw a mental health course that I could take, I was like definitely taking it, because I know I struggle with mental health concerns, and then I know so many people in my family that do as well. I feel like it helped me a lot to understand.
And don't you kind of feel like it was a blessing that people in your family, like I look at my path now with mental health and I'm like, you know, the very
because you
thing.
understand.
Yeah, even right now during quarantine, to recognize and be like, yo, I don't want to come out of my room.
Yeah.
Oh, it's anxiety and depression. I know what that is.
Yeah.
I know how to deal with that.
I think that all leads to resilience, because how do we become resilient is by going through experiences. So I'm actually thankful for everything I've experienced in my life, like good or bad, because that's made me who I am. And I think I'm resilient.
So resilient. I love you. She's so
Ew.
sweet. I love you. I just want to kiss her and she gets mad at me. She's like, don't touch me. And I'm like, all I want to do is touch you. Cut that out, actually.
But yeah, it makes you resilient because I actually had grandparents who had mental health concerns growing up, and when I was younger, I always just thought that it was just normal, like how they were, like their behavior, it was just normal to me. And you don't realize until you're older and you look back and you're like, oh no, that wasn't normal, or like that wasn't, not that there even is a normal, but
What is normal?
I know.
You know, going back to what you said about resilience, you know, and what is resilience? You know, what the definition of resilience is the ability to get through difficult situations with grace, you know, and come out on the other side. And I feel like that is like the mantra for life. You know what, who even a person who's like, yo, I have everything, it's like, you're still gonna experience loss. You're still gonna experience, you know, many hurdles and challenges in our lives, like everybody. How do we find support? Through human connection, through having these open, raw, vulnerable conversations to say, yeah, I experienced this too, you're not alone.
Even just on Instagram, I get so many messages from girls that I know that just open up to me. I've wrote literally novels, like shared novels with other girls, just talking about things, and they're like, wow, I feel so much better after like talking to you about it and someone that actually understands.
I wish I had social media when I was your age, because I think
you do and you don't.
I do and I don't, actually, But social media and mental health is a huge thing. That is a really great topic that we like to tackle too. And
suggestion for Instagram I recommend is, I have had friends that follow influencers and stuff, and they'll send me pictures and be like, oh my gosh, I feel shitty about myself after looking at this. And my response to that is, stop following people that make you feel like that. If you're following a page and it makes you feel bad about yourself, unfollow. You don't need that. And when you're scrolling on Instagram, you want to see things you enjoy. We have resources on Instagram, so instead of seeing influencers on my timeline, all I see is usually just advice, mental health related, and honestly like cooking videos.
yeah, like filter through.
Everything we're looking at is affecting us, from like pictures on Instagram to the music we listen to, the things we're seeing every day. Like, they may all seem like little things, like, oh, you saw someone's picture on Instagram for a split second, but like it affects you still. They all add up, all the little things.
Yeah, and that's why it's good to just do a filter. Like, I do that for myself now, and I just go in and I just kind of do a little cleanup and really only go on social media at certain times of the day. I don't go on after like, you know, 7 p.m. on most nights during the week when I'm working, because, you know, first of all, the blue light just isn't good. It affects your sleep, and I have trouble sleeping as it is. So I'm like, why would I like go on it? And for my anxiety, it's like if I see something late at night, then I'm like tossing and turning about that too. And it could just be something, the most stupidest thing that's like invading my mind. And I don't want that shit, you know? Like, I need to put my mental health first. And, you know, even to just touch on like when you first started to experience mental health, I was your age when I got my first diagnosis. I didn't have social media, you know, like you even said, like a tool that you could use to gain knowledge, right? When it comes to following.
Or even someone to ask, because it's happened to me where I've been in class at university and I'm having like full-on panic attack and I don't even know what's happening to myself, but I'm just sitting there. It's a normal day in class, but for some reason I just feel like super anxious, like something's gonna happen, or like all of a sudden I'm like, oh my god, why do I feel like this? I feel like I need to just leave and get out of the classroom.
Because anxiety just like,
yeah,
I am here.
I start texting my friends and I'm like, I don't feel well right now, guys. Like, I feel like I can't breathe, or like I need to leave, like I feel really hot. I just like talked myself through it by just telling myself like, it's fine, you're sitting in class, nothing's happening to you, you're okay, and waiting for it to just like pass. And eventually it did. And then I was sitting there and I was like, okay, thank God, like it's gone. I asked my mom actually what it was, and she was like, yeah, you were having a panic attack. I got to like figure out what it was.
And for you, I feel like I'm hearing that you like educate yourself about it. And so like, if you know, you can like talk yourself out of that You can recognize what's happening to you, which is such a big thing, right?
That's a big thing for me, is I know what's happening. I'm like talking myself through it, like, okay, calm down. I literally am talking to myself in my mind, like I'm like a friend.
It's like the 3 R's that my therapist talks to me about a lot too. Realizing what's happening, regulation, and then relaxing. You know, realizing what's happening. You know, okay, I'm having a panic attack. Regulation, you know, are you using a breathing technique that has been recommended to you by a therapist that you've tried and it's been tested and it's working for you? One technique is like the 4-7-8 technique, which is like you take a deep breath in for 4 counts, you hold it for 7, and you release for 8. It really regulates your flight or fight, all of those things that are happening in your body, you know, out of the response of fear. And it doesn't have to be necessarily anything. That's the thing with anxiety, it's just coming out of nowhere.
Yeah, mine was out of nowhere. There was nothing to even be anxious about. I was in like a calm environment, doing my daily routine. Like, it's not like anything changed.
Realizing what's happening, the regulation through breathing techniques, and just trying to relax.
Another thing I wanted to talk about was therapy. Well, I feel like this weird reaction when someone says that they're going to therapy. Maybe it's like mostly in our community where people are like, they think they don't need it, or they think it's something
It's such a
weird.
Strong thing in our community. I feel like they're like, just be strong.
Yeah.
Just be strong.
Yeah.
Just be strong.
But
it'll pass. And it's like,
I think everyone should be going to therapy or have some type of therapy.
I think it's about being strong is asking for help.
Yeah.
I think that's the most brave thing that you can do. So let's talk about like your forms of therapy, and I'll share some of mine. What are like your top?
My biggest form of therapy is the gym. Like, if I don't go to the gym consistently, I will have those feelings that come with anxiety, like the ones where you can't breathe, like my chest feels heavy, and I literally feel like I'm like gasping for air. So if I don't go to the gym and have a heavy workout, it's like a release basically. I'm more the type where I like to spend time on my own, like alone, where I need to like recharge. Third one, it's so weird because my second one is being alone, but my third one would be to be with someone else. You feel much better, you feel good because you're like talking with someone, you're spending time with someone that you love. So going out, that's also like a release too.
Which has been so hard, right, for everyone.
Yeah,
I'm sure, like COVID. It's just well, it's so hard to even just spend time with your loved ones, right? Unless you're lucky enough to like be with them, right? My top 3 would be movement. Would be my first one, of course. Movement, like you. I was a dancer for many years, so that was my outlet. I didn't even know until I got my diagnosis, like that.
And she's a personal trainer, certified
yoga.
So I learned, and the yoga instructor too. Everything I know about working out. I used to ask you about form, about everything, especially when I lived with her. Remember, we used to go to the gym together, and that's when I first started working out, like really getting into it. Yeah.
Second would probably be therapy. I've had a therapist for most of my life. In my early 20s is when I first found a really good therapist. I mean, it took a lot of trial and error because a therapist is like a relationship. So to anyone out there that's looking to start therapy, don't just give up on your first try. You might have to go through like 4 or 5, you know, it's gonna be hard. And you know what, it's expensive if you don't have coverage, if you don't have benefits. So explore all of this, but don't give up on yourself. I find yoga for me is meditation, so it's meditation through movement. If I don't go, it's like taking medication for me. If I don't go for like a week, I'm like, I
hear that about everyone that does meditation. They're always like, if I miss a day, I feel it.
Yeah. So whatever form of therapy, like it could be in the form of even support groups, which are free. Like Canadian Mental Health Association has many support groups, and Social Mental Health again, that are free. It may not be one-on-one like with a psychologist, but those are really beneficial and really great as well. And then I'd say the third thing is probably music for me.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, for you,
I forgot
it's
about that.
Huge one for you. I feel like
when I went through that first period of grief, all I did was go out just solely to listen to music and dance.
And music is really therapeutic. I find like whatever mood I'm in, it can just take me to another level. It can help me escape, or it can help me just really like release, like almost like move through the feeling. So like grief, like when my father passed away, I was like listening to these specific songs that were helping me like almost like move through my grief. And oftentimes when I miss him, I can go back and listen to that music. Yeah, so those are my top 3, but there's so many, right? It's all about finding your
what works
your
for
thing,
you.
know? It could even be watching YouTube videos. Like we talked about that earlier.
Vlogs. It kind of feels like you have a friend when you're watching vlogs.
Yeah,
Like the movies as well. Watch the same movies every year because they're like familiar.
Yeah, it's like Christmas with the Crank.
Yeah, like Christmas movies. It's like that feeling when you watch Christmas
They're so
movies. Like
therapeutic.
you've seen them a million times, but
Yes.
you want to watch it because you know it's gonna be a feel-good movie. Like mine is Silver Linings, though. That's my Every year I watch Silver Linings, and
it's an escape. It's something that nostalgic, right?
Yeah, that's a big one for me.
And that's what Christmas movies are, right?
Yeah.
They take you back to this the special time. Mental health is a topic that I feel like we could talk about forever.
I know.
Find your community, find your outlet, find your routine for taking care of your mental health. Like make it a priority every single day. This is the only body we're gonna live in, and this is the only mind you're gonna have. So mental health, something everyone has, gotta be a priority.
If you guys have any more questions or want us to do another video,
like reach out. She'll put my information here as well. If you are looking to just find some extra support and resources, I would be more than happy to share that with you.
Thanks for watching, guys, and joining this video on a very important topic. And make sure you guys subscribe.
Thanks for having me.
Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and we'll see you in my next vlog.
Take care.